Welcome back. This week, the Florida legislature passed a bill that critics argue will criminalize protests. The measure, known as HB 1 or House Bill 1, was a top priority of Governor Ron DeSantis and came in response to the protests over the killing of George Floyd and other black men and women at the hands of police. After the measure passed, I spoke to State Senator Shevrin Jones and LaToya Ratlieff, who was shot in the face with a rubber bullet by a police officer while she was peacefully protesting in downtown Fort Lauderdale last summer.
I remember when I first heard of the bill last year, and I was in complete shock when, especially for a governor of a state, and you have an incident of police brutality at the demonstrations that are against police brutality, and the first thing that you do is not even address the concerns of the people, because there's been hundreds of protests, Black Lives Matter protests, starting from the summer, continuing to now. There are still organizations that have protests, and when you think about the overwhelming amount of the protests and how the community came together for a peaceful event and how it came together to speak out against something that not just Black people are concerned with, but everyone is concerned with. And for him to make his first priority, the first bill that's presented in the middle of a pandemic, be against Black people and Black voices is quite unfortunate. And for me, it was something that was a bit heartbreaking, because I want to think that our leaders are listening to us.
Chev, LaToya just talked about how this was a bill targeted at Black people. You called it a racist bill. I know from listening to the discussions on the Republican side that they say that race plays no factor in this, that there is nothing in the bill that discusses race whatsoever. So why do you believe there is a racial connotation to this bill?
I mean, if we look at the timeline of this, Jim, the timeline of this is exactly what I said in the beginning. The timeline was during the time of the demonstrations of George Floyd. The individuals who were out there were individuals from the Black Lives Matter movement and those who are allies and advocates of Black Lives Matter movement. And the governor was extremely clear from some of his followers calling individuals like myself and LaToya thugs for being out there, or socialists for being out there, or Antifa, which has no definition to its name. And so on its core, how the governor came up with this is just that. If you go back in time and you look at from during the time of the Jim Crow era, this is exactly what they did then. At every step of the way, they moved the goalposts to silence people, specifically African-American individuals within the South. And that's what's happening now. Look, we can see it from the voting policies that are coming out through Georgia and Florida, and now we're seeing it now.
We don't control everyone that comes to a demonstration. You can't control every single person that comes there. And from what we've seen across the country, it wasn't always the participants that were introducing the violence. And even particularly in Fort Lauderdale, everything was going well in Fort Lauderdale until an officer shoved a girl, and that's when things changed. So for this to be, if I'm looking at this bill and applying it to last year, and if it was already in place last year, the officer changed the tone of that event. And now, because the officer changed the tone of that event, and they were supposed to be there to basically guide us, to basically make sure everything was okay and lead us through the streets, we would in return be punished because an officer changed the tone of that event. So it's not something that's for us. It's not something that protects us. It's one of those things where they put in this language and makes it seem like it's supposed to be better for everyone when we know it's not.
Chev, what's the practical application of this bill? What is the real consequence of this bill? We're now seeing the trial of Derek Chauvin in Minnesota. We could have a verdict. Depending on how that goes, you could see protests again. You may see protests anyway this summer for any number of reasons. What's the practical effect of this bill going forward?
I think the practical effect of this is going to cripple our local governments because it cripples the hands of local governments being able to adjust their budgets, their police budgets if need be. It also puts in a position to where in LaToya's case, that an officer who commits battery towards a peaceful demonstrator, nothing happens to him or her, but someone like LaToya who's there and she's peacefully protesting and to say if they think she's that she has um, um, uh, did anything to an officer, then now she's penalized, even if it was someone else. They don't know they don't know who in that crowd is the agitator at those events. And I think LaToya said it best, that when we go to these demonstrations, we go with the spirit of true unity. What happens after these protests happen, yeah, do agitators come? Of course they do come, but that's not the spirit in which we come into these things. And so a lot of these policies that are aligned, that they voted on yesterday, all it's going to do is going to clog up our criminal justice system, because individuals who are placed under the care of police officers will have to sit inside the jail until they're able to see a judge. And all this is going to do is cost us more money as a state. In a state who continues to say that we want to bring forth criminal justice reform. This is the total opposite of what we've been trying to work on here.
LaToya, let me end with this and ask you, what happens now? Will this silence folks like yourself?
I think it's unfortunate that some people will have to make a tough decision on whether or not they can be there, because when you think about what can happen, even just thinking about myself, I could go out and something happens at a protest and I have no idea what's going on, and I could end up with a felony. And I'm a person that works in nonprofit. I'm a person that sits on committees for organizations, and that would change my life significantly. So if you're someone that doesn't want to risk your freedom and risk possibly going to jail, you're going to make that tough decision to stay home. And that's why, especially what Shev said, it's about silencing us. Even just this week alone, the amount of police brutality cases that have been revealed is draining. So I can only say for myself that I have to make tough decisions and understand that until change is made, then I have to be able to continue to do whatever it takes to bring awareness to it, because it's one of the worst things is to continue to hear of Black men that are dying. And it's just unfortunate that our governor cares more about not us allowing us to not have a voice than actual Black men being killed at the hands of the police.
I just want to add to what LaToya just said. It is going to it does attempt to put individuals in a tough position on whether or not they go out to these demonstrations now. But I can tell you it's the same thing I shared in the gaggle after we had our after we adjourned. Is I can tell you this: you better get the bail money, because I can tell you when the demonstrations happen, as long as the injustices within this country and the state continue to happen, I'm showing up.
We'll be right back.